I've seen it 100 times. People scroll through glossy pictures of a center channel speaker, imagine crystal clear dialogue in their home theater, click add to cart, and then end up with a unit that sounds tinny or just doesn't blend with the rest of the system. The disappointment usually comes from buying a speaker that looks perfect on the page but isn't tuned for the room you actually live in. If you've ever felt that hesitation, you're not alone, and this review is here to help you avoid that mistake. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Acoustics Concept 90 is marketed as a high-end center speaker that can sit in a glossy silver cabinet and deliver movie dialogue that feels like it's coming from right in front of you. The first thing I wanted to figure out was whether the engineering tricks they brag about, gel-core cabinet, isolation suspension base, hermetically sealed tweeter, actually translate into a noticeable advantage when the speaker sits on a typical living room shelf or is mounted on a wall. Let's talk about the practical setup first. The Concept 90 comes with a sturdy isolation suspension base that decouples the cabinet from the floor or a stand. In my test environment, a medium-sized room with a mix of hardwood and carpet, I placed the speaker on a low-profile TV stand. The base did a solid job of stopping the cabinet from transmitting vibrations into the stand, which you can hear when a low-frequency rumble from an action movie hits the screen. There's no rattling, and the overall impression is that the speaker stays quiet itself, letting the mids and highs shine. The cabinet itself uses a gel-core material that Acoustics says reduces high-frequency noise. In plain terms, that means the speaker is less likely to pick up and amplify ambient room sounds like an air conditioner or the hum of a refrigerator. When I played a dialogue-heavy drama, the spoken lines were clean and free of the faint hiss you sometimes hear from less refined cabinets. It's a subtle benefit, but in a room where the TV is on all day, that quietness makes the center channel feel less intrusive. Now, the most talked about feature is the hermetically sealed tweeter. The tweeter sits in its own sealed chamber, isolated from the main cabinet, which should protect it from resonances that can color the high frequencies. In practice, the effect is a smoother top end. If you've ever watched a sci-fi film where the laser sounds are harsh or metallic, the Concept 90 handles those peaks with a soft, controlled sparkle rather than a shrill edge. It's not an audiophile-level revelation, but for the average home theater enthusiast, it's a noticeable improvement over many budget center speakers that can sound brittle on high-frequency effects. The baffle-mounted driver assembly is another design choice worth mentioning. By mounting the drivers directly to the baffle, Acoustics aims for tighter acoustic sealing, which should reduce unwanted colorations. I tested this by listening to a complex soundtrack with layered instruments and vocal tracks. The mid-bass driver stayed tight, delivering dialogue that stayed anchored without a boomy, muddy feel. The bass extension is modest, nothing that will replace a dedicated subwoofer, but it's enough to add weight to explosions and musical passages without overwhelming the front left and front right speakers. So who should actually consider the Concept 90? First, if you already own a pair of Acoustics speakers for your front left and right channels, this center unit is designed to match them both visually and tonally. The silver gloss finish will blend seamlessly with a modern core, and the acoustic tuning aligns well with other Acoustics models, meaning you'll get a cohesive soundstage rather than a disjointed mix. Second, if you're building a new home theater system on a mid-range budget and you want a center speaker that won't dominate the price tag but still offers a refined listening experience, this is a solid candidate. It shines in dialogue-centric content, movies, TV series, sports broadcasts where clarity and intelligibility are the primary goals. On the flip side, there are a few scenarios where you might want to skip it. If you're a bass-heavy home theater fanatic who expects the center channel to deliver deep rumble, the Concept 90's low-frequency output is intentionally restrained. You'll still need a dedicated subwoofer for that impact. Also, if you're planning to mount the center speaker high on the wall, the isolation suspension base loses some of its benefit, and you'll need to ensure you have proper wall mounting hardware. The weight of the silver cabinet is a little on the heavier side, so a wall mount kit isn't included and you'll have to source one separately. There are a couple of practical weaknesses that deserve attention. The silver gloss finish, while striking, can show fingerprints and dust more readily than matte finishes. In a high-traffic family room, you might find yourself wiping it down more often than you'd like. Additionally, the speaker's input sensitivity is set for typical home theater receivers, but if you're pairing it with a high-gain amp, you could experience a bit of harshness on the upper mids. A simple solution is to use a small attenuation.